Here we go. Good morning, everyone. I am Karen Gray. I am an agent with First Weber in Middleton. I am the co-chair for the Affordable Housing Equal Opportunity Committee, and I'm helping Ruth out this morning by introducing our speaker, Teresa Palacios Smith. She is the Chief Diversity and Equity Inclusion Officer for HomeServices of America, a Berkshire Hathaway affiliate, which is one of the country's premier providers of homeownership services, including brokerage, mortgage, franchising, title, escrow, insurance, and relocation services. In her role, she oversees the organization's commitment to employee and agent diversity programs, and she has over 20 years of real estate experience. She's often a frequent speaker and trainer for national events around the country. I'm not going to go on. I'm going to let Teresa introduce herself. She obviously can do a much better job doing it than what I can. So I hope you enjoy this morning. I think it's a wonderful way to come to an end of the Affordable Housing Month. So please enjoy.
Thank you so much, Karen, and thank you all. Good morning for joining us today. I'm really excited to be part of your presentation today, and it's a really important topic and something that I'm passionate about. And of course, it is Fair Housing Month, it's Diversity Month, and we're going to talk about all and what that means. And also, you know, as Karen, first of all, Karen, thank you so much for inviting me to speak, and Ruth for all your help getting coordinated. And I want a hands up just as I start the videos, if y'all will just give me your thumbs up, because sometimes on my end, it looks like everything's working, and then on your end, you're like, oh, the video is not working. But we're going to share some great videos along with some great insights about our unconscious brains and what happens and how sometimes things that we don't even notice happen and why they happen. But first, I thought I'd give you a little bit. And again, Karen, thank you for that beautiful introduction. Just a little bit background about me, and so that you know where I come from and how I relate. And I'm assuming a lot of you are realtors that are in the room. Karen, correct me if I'm wrong. And you've got some interns too that are interning in the field. So kudos and welcome to the real estate world. It is a fabulous world, and it's a great time to be in real estate. Give you some awareness and industry news, and you're probably already familiar with it, but in the event that you're not, it gives you another insight, right? Along with the Newsday story and the after effects. I don't know how many of you are aware of what Newsday was, the story that kind of rocked the entire country, especially our real estate community, because what happened at that, it was a 3-year undercover investigation that made us realize we had a long way to go. Even though the Civil Rights Act and the Fair Housing Act had passed in 1968, we still had so much room for growth, and what that meant in that growth and in that passage. Unconscious bias, what does that mean? And provide you kind of an outlook on that. And let me tell you, I'm going to share some things, personal stories about my own unconscious bias, and know that it's something that we need to talk about, and how it really opened my eyes to things that I myself was biased against and for. And then some great tools that you can go back and learn from once we're done with this presentation, because I want y'all to continue to learn. And I think there's a lot of great information that you can take from what we do today. So just to give you a quick look at my background, I am known as the Gringa Latina with a Yankee Rebel attitude. And the reason I'm known like that is because I was born in New York City, but I have that Southern accent, as y'all can tell. And how the heck did I get that Southern accent? And where's my intersectionality? So I actually was born in New York City. My parents are from Colombia, South America. But I realized later that my birth mother, who I found out about later, was actually Puerto Rican. So I have a little bit of Puerto Rican in me, Colombian, as well as I am a gringa. And I'm proud to be a gringa. And I say that because when I was growing up, I was never somebody that fit in anywhere. I don't know if anybody has that, can relate to me, right? I didn't fit anywhere. And the reason is because I was born in New York. And when I was about 7 years old, my dad got a phenomenal job with Northeast Airlines. And that airlines eventually was bought out by Delta, the famous Delta Airlines. And Delta then needed people because it was opening routes in Miami, and they needed people that spoke Spanish. And believe me, my dad didn't speak English very well. He had a very thick accent, and they knew my dad would be the perfect fit in Miami to train a lot of the newcomers that were coming in on the baggage. My dad actually did emptied the planes and did the baggage, and also cleaned the planes, and was that guy with the lights that you see right out in the field. That's what he did all my life. I always would tell people he was a pilot because I was embarrassed to say that he actually cleaned the planes. Today, I'm so proud of the fact that that's what he did, because he sacrificed so much for me to be able to be here today with you presenting. I could never imagine it as a little girl. So at age 7, my mother, I had twin sisters, all moved to what New Yorkers believe is the South. And you know where that was? Florida. We ended up going to Miami. And anyone that's from the South knows that Florida really isn't the South. We all know that Florida is very cosmopolitan, very international, but we moved to Miami. And in Miami, we lived in a 2-bedroom and 1-bath small little apartment. And it actually wasn't 2 bedrooms. It was like a 1-bedroom with a little den. You know what I'm talking about, right? And that apartment, my aunts eventually came from Colombia, because immigrants do that. They bring their entire families because they realize there's so much opportunity in America, and this is the place that you can make it. And so my aunts now live with us along with my grandmother. We had that many people living in this little 2-bedroom apartment, and my dad worked all the time. And he sat down and sat with me one day and said, Teresita, he says, we are looking to buy our first home and we need your help. I was the only one that spoke English because I was the only one that went to school, and I was in elementary school. I think I was like at 1st grade, but I was the biggest speaker in my family. And the agent that was helping us with the process did not speak Spanish. And so my mother, who did not speak English, and my aunts, who didn't speak English, needed help while my dad worked to find our home. And so that is when I first got the bug of real estate. Believe it or not, as I think back, I remember what a wonderful experience it was looking for a home, and that feeling of home ownership that each one of you create for your consumers, for the people that you work with, for our clients. So at age 7, 8 years old, I went out with our agent and we found that beautiful home. And I remember we all went to the closing table, every one of us, even our baby sisters. My little sisters were babies at the time. And I remember that the attorney was like, oh my God, you've lost your mind. Why are all these people here? But it was because the experience and the fact that we knew we were buying a home. And remember, I was so excited about it, was such that for us, it was an important passage. And I still remember the day that when we went to our house, right after we'd gotten the keys, and my dad took the day off, and we went to open the keys to the house, and my dad's hands were shaking, and he was so happy that he even dropped the keys, right? He was so excited and scared and frightened, and he put the keys in there. And when we ran in, my mom went straight to the kitchen, which was her place. At the time, that's what our family did. We entertained, we cooked, we lived, and started to cry. We were screaming like little kids, screaming all through the house, running. But my mom started to cry. And then my dad also started to cry. And I couldn't understand, why are they crying? I mean, this is weird. It's a happy time. It was years later that I realized it was pride. It was pride. We had actually achieved the American dream of homeownership. And so for me, I want to share with you that experience, because every time you help a family, a brand new family, a minority, a millennial, somebody buy their first home, never forget the power that you have to create an opportunity for generational wealth and to create a passage. Because I know if I link it back, that's where it started for me. So went to school. This was our phenomenal first home. And I eventually, my dad, we were discriminated heavily because at the time, a lot of Cubans were moving into Miami. So I used to get spit on and beat up. And as a little girl, all these things, because people didn't like the fact that we were there. And in addition to that, my father felt like we were losing our Colombian roots. People were confusing us with Cubans. So we ended up moving from Miami to somewhere totally different. And that was Mississippi. Now, think about it. From Miami to Mississippi, what a culture shock. But it was a beautiful experience because I learned the culture of the South, the experience, the differences. And I developed my own even biases living in Mississippi. I'm going to tell you about those in a few minutes. But in Mississippi, I met my husband today, my high school sweetheart. We met in high school, married, and then eventually I ended up going to college, first one in my family. So there were a lot of firsts for us. The first one to graduate from college, first one to move away. We ended up moving to Arkansas and then eventually to Georgia, where I live now. And when we moved to Atlanta, I realized I wanted to be a realtor. And that's when I got into real estate again, because I knew that that passion was there for me to become a real estate agent. So like all of you out there, I decided to go back into real estate after having my two kids. And I ended up with a Coldwell Banker, working with them initially, and then eventually got an opportunity with Prudential Georgia Realty, where I sold real estate, represented business development, and then went into relocation. But my mother died when I was 18 in Mississippi, which is the reason that my father ended up moving away into Georgia and why Mike and I eventually moved here. And with her death, I realized that I was missing a lot of my culture because now I was really assimilated, and I had a lot of friends that were American, and I didn't know much about my roots, and I really wanted to rediscover them. So I decided to get involved in the community, and I got involved with the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And at that level, I became the chair eventually. And one of the things that happened was there was an organization by the name of National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals. Raise your hand if you know who I'm talking about. They're known as NAREP. NAREP became, they were looking to open chapters across the country. And it just sparked my interest when I went to their first convention. And at that convention, it was like, wow. It is Latinos, it is mission of increasing Hispanic home ownership, it's real estate, and it's a professional organization. What more can I ask for? It's just perfect to what I want to do. So I got involved and eventually became the national president of that organization, which is one of the largest trade organizations in the country. And I know all the realtors, NAR is very involved with that organization as well. And so when I did that, I met Gino Blafari, who's the CEO of HomeServices of America. And he asked me to come and create a program for HomeServices of America in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. And that's why I am here today. I cannot believe that I'm working with a great organization. And that's how I met Karen, because Karen is part of our HomeServices of America family. So just to give you an idea of my background, there are 2 designations that I have, along with realtor and accredited buyer and all the things that are really important that I always carry with me. And that's the At Home with Diversity course. And I'm a certified trainer in that course, along with my CIPS, my Certified International Property Specialist, because those are important to me in the work that I do today. And I carry it with my signature and in everything I do. And for those of you who want to learn more, I'll be able to give you information about it as well. So let's go into this presentation and find out the terminology. You're probably all wondering, if you haven't heard of diversity, equity, and inclusion, what the heck does that mean? What is the role about? Because believe it or not, when I was asked to do this, I thought, what does that mean? And what is this role about? Because I didn't know, what is all this? I had to live diversity all my life, but I just didn't know what it meant. So I thought it'd be great for us to just kind of go over the terminology and what it means, because today there's a lot of confusion, a lot of, this, that. Let's just go through it and discuss it. So diversities are the differences that we have that make us who we are in racial, ethnicity, socioeconomic, geographic, academic, professional backgrounds everything. It's not just diversity of color, right, or ethnicity, which a lot of people think of when they think of diversity. It's diversity of thought. It's diversity of different people, of all of these wonderful things combined, right, that make up us, that make us our country. Inclusion is the involvement and empowerment where all of us are able to feel that we belong in an organization and that we also are included in the decisions and in the opportunities there are within our organizations. Equality and equity, a lot of times people are confused about those words. So equality just means equal opportunity at the same levels for all, to support all the segments of society. And sometimes that could be confusing to equity. And equity is more fairness and equality in outcomes, not just in the support and opportunity. And there's a lot of controversy about it because sometimes it can be difficult and you can take it too far left, too far right. But let's take a look at this picture because I think pictures are worth 1,000 words, right? So if you look at this picture, which shows wonderful diversity, inclusion, and equity, right? Can you see the difference about how the children now all really can see that wonderful soccer game at the same level because they're all given the types of opportunities, right? The steps that allow them to go in and look at the field. Whereas in the other, you see that it's not inequality, even though they all have the equal amount of the same size, it really doesn't accommodate their needs so that they can view the game. So that's primarily the biggest difference. Don't y'all love that? It's an easy way to see what the differences is. So I love this. There's another one that I like that has a ramp for those individuals with disabilities that is also in the fence. I could not find that, but I love that too, because it kind of gives you a better idea of what equity means in the big picture. So I want to talk about training programs. There are phenomenal training programs. If you're not familiar with them, that I would love for you to learn after, if you're interested. There is diversity training. There's also obviously this training that I do. I do a lot of training across the country to our companies and to our brokers, because I think it's so important to learn and also to feel that you're not left out. Because a lot of times right now, there are certain groups that feel they're being attacked. I get that. And so we don't want that. I want to make sure everyone feels included and everyone feels safe and secure and respected, because that's what's important to all of us. So I do a lot of training on that side. I think that's really important as NAR, and you guys know Charlie Oppler. He is phenomenal. I actually was on a call yesterday because NAR is developing a wonderful mentorship program, and we're going to be involved with it. And we're looking at different pilot markets, but he's actually done such an incredible job. And this year, he actually did one thing that I was so impressed by, and that's that he talked about some of the past discrepancies in our NARs, right, in the lifestyle of real estate, and why it was important for us to acknowledge what had happened and what we did so that we can move forward and create a better life for all of the real estate organizations in this country and for the clients that we serve. And saying, hey, I apologize. I can't believe we did this in the past, although we didn't do it. I didn't do it, nor did you, right? But it's important to us to acknowledge that this happened. That way we can move forward. And so they've created at NAR, and I'm sure you've seen all these incredible courses that they now have. And if you haven't seen them, I'm going to encourage you to go to the website. All you have to do is look. Right now, they're creating a 3-hour implicit course that they're going to develop, and they're going to start to institute. That's going to be like a CE credit for all of us who want to take CE courses and get those credits. I love that. It's going to be great, and it's being created by the same people who did the implicit bias video. How many of you, show of hands, have seen the implicit bias video that's on NAR's website by chance? Anybody? That video is worth watching. It's about 51 minutes. It's so eye-opening and so impressive. I definitely recommend all of you go to watch it because it's incredible. And they also have a fair housing simulation course that they created that allows you to go. It's called Fair Haven. I've done it. It's so much fun. You actually learn a lot about yourself, about some of the biases that you might have by going through that Fair Haven course. And it's, again, a training that's phenomenal for us to take. All right, let's talk about some terminology you probably don't like to hear, but you probably heard it and you want to know what it means. So implicit bias, that's what we're going to talk about and what we're going to train on today. So it's also known as unconscious bias. And this is attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, decisions towards others without even us realizing. Steering is the terminology that specifically talks about a discriminatory practice in real estate that guided, and we still do it today, home buyers toward or away from certain neighborhoods based on their race or ethnicity. And I'll tell you, it happens not just on neighborhoods that are white, or it happens in communities of LGBTQ plus who want to be safe, and also Latinos who feel like they need to be in safe neighborhoods. We all have been asked, as an agent that speaks in Hispanic, hey, where should I live? So steering, I can't steer people to communities. I want to tell them everywhere they could live based on their needs. Systemic racism, a system in which policies, institutional practices, cultural representations, and other normal practice which reinforce ways to perpetuate racial inequality and injustice. That one is one that bothers a lot of people, but I want to clarify what it really means, because once I understood it, I thought, wow, this now makes sense to me, and why we hear a lot of the scenarios of there are certain practices that currently happen that cause from history things that are disparities today. And then redlining. This was a process in which banks and other lending institutions could refuse mortgages insurance based on racial or ethnic composition of a neighborhood, or offer worse rates to people in those communities. Again, this actually happened, and it caused a lot of different disparities in different communities. So I'm going to skip to this video, and we're going to go to the next, because one of the things that I want to do is cover the Newsday story, and then I'll come back to this video, which will kind of give you a better understanding of what we mean by systemic racism. All right. We live in a world, I love this quote by Fred Rogers. I just think it's beautiful. We live in a world in which we need to share responsibility. It's easy to say, it's not my child, not my community, not my world, not my problem. I didn't do it. So why should I do anything about it? Then there are those who see the need and respond. I consider those people my heroes, and you today are my heroes. You're on this screen, you're watching this presentation because I know you want to learn. So I really appreciate you taking the time to connect with me today. So let's talk about Newsday, Long Island Divided, and unconscious bias, because it looks like a lot of you are still not familiar with the story or what happened. So what it was about 4 years ago. Newsday is a magazine, kind of like it's located in the boroughs, and they're also television. They do TV, and they do a newspaper, and they're on digital media. And they went undercover to see, because they had heard that in Long Island, there was still a lot of discrimination that was happening, and integration, like neighborhoods were not integrated, right? That they were segregated, and there was a lot of steering that was happening. And that led to this 3-year investigation where they went and actually went in with testers, people that were testing to see if discrimination would happen. Each of the testers tested 93 agents altogether. So all of them were involved with these 93 agents. And there were 240 hours that recorded secret conversations with those agents. And so what happened after is that they found the following, that in Long Island, out of those agents, those 93 agents that were shot, 19% of the time, they discriminated against people that were Asian American. 39% discriminated against Hispanics. and 49% of the time against African Americans. And the way they determined this discrimination was based on the fact that all four, so you had white, non-Hispanic, Caucasian buyers, you had Hispanic buyers, Asian American buyers, and African American buyers. All four had the exact price range, exact same requirements, exact same everything when they went in to talk to the agents and when they went in to ask for help in finding real estate. And the real estate they needed was exactly the same requirements. Wow. So let me show you two videos that kind of give you an eye opener, and then we'll go into the unconscious bias training, because we believe a lot of it was based on unconscious bias. And that's when the course was rolled out. So let's look at the first one. And these are real hard to hear. So you'll see a lot of the right, you can check the text out, because again, you can't hear it very well because it's undercover. But here's the first one.
Don't really know certain areas that you're going to get next door. Follow the school bus. That's what I always say. Follow the school bus. See the moms that are hanging out on the corners. I can't say anything, but I encourage you. I want you to go there at 10 o'clock at night if you want to buy diapers. Go to that 7-Eleven. They didn't buy there.
No, that's great.
I have to say it without saying it. You have the knowledge of the areas.
Yes.
I don't want to use the word steer, but I try to I'll use another word. I educate in the areas.
That's
I was a first-time home buyer myself one time, and I remember what the first agent told us, I don't know, 30 years ago. What a creep. When you think about it now, and how much I've learned over the years. I mean, it's all about the location.
So she used the word steer even in her conversation, because she felt that she wanted this buyer not to choose a home because that he asked for, because it was in an area she didn't feel was appropriate for him. So steering, right? So let's look at the second one and check out what happened here.
I don't know about that. I have to get about that because I've been running like a dog.
So I really need that. I won't take out any money unless I do have a pre-qualification. So I need to know that you're pre-qualified for a mortgage.
Oh, so that means I can't go out to see anything.
I won't do it. You can try another person, but I don't have the time to do that.
Good. I'm just going to take some notes and introduce you to Signature. What is your availability? When can you start looking at this?
I would say not the coming week, but the following week.
Okay. So today is, let's set up our first appointment. I will send you listings this afternoon.
So in this situation, there's nothing wrong with asking for a pre-qualification letter, because that's important, right? You don't want to take people out. And I know with COVID, it's even, now even a bit even precarious in doing it. So, but the problem is that she asked the African-American buyer for a pre-qualification letter and refused not to help her until she provided that. But yet when the white came in, she didn't ask for that and actually showed her homes. Never came up. So again, she was caught with violating the Fair Housing Act. And so these are things that happen, and we realize a lot of times that's why we created this course. So here's the real life impact of what happens.
Too often I hear people who maybe aren't as familiar with this kind of work say, oh, well, they were just testers. But all you have to do is tell someone, which I have to do on a fairly regular basis, that you were turned down because of your race, and tell them the circumstances that occurred on a particular test. And you will see just how real and painful that injury is.
Imagine you have this dream home in mind and somebody says it's already been bought. You might want to look over here instead because you might fit in over here better. I mean, all these things, right, that impact people and make them feel like they're not worthy. And so that's the real reason that I think We really all need to stop and think about what we do in our actions. And that's where we come in with the unconscious bias. What is it? And do I have it, right? So, one of the things I want to caution you, sometimes these things are uncomfortable, these conversations. And so I want you to know that it's okay if you feel uncomfortable. It's comfortable being uncomfortable. That's the way we learn, right? I actually told you that my dad worked for Delta Airlines, and all my life working for Delta, we would go to company picnics in Mississippi, and the pilots would be in one group and the flight attendants would be in another group, and the customer service people where my dad worked in the baggage department, we all were, even though we were at that party, we were always kind of, segregated. But I still remember that I knew all these pilots and I got to meet a lot of the people within that company. And something happened to me recently. This is about 2 years ago when I was boarding a Delta flight. I'm going to share it with after we look at the presentation of what happened to me. So let's get started. I want you to look at the following photos I'm going to share you and quickly make a decision. Just with your first instinct, answer the question in your mind. You don't have to go anywhere. This is all personal. Just answer your first instinctive response. Here we go. You guys ready? All right. Tell me, if you had a computer problem in your office, you're so frustrated, who would you ask for help? Who would you say, I need help on my computer? I need to get help. Who would you go to instinctively, not knowing that, for help? Which of these coworkers could you rely on to meet a deadline? If you got a deadline, you got to get it done. Which of these coworkers would you go to help you with that? First response. Who just purchased that $5 million home? Who just purchased that $5 million home from you? Who's most likely to do just enough work to get by? Who is the better leader? And who do you consider more trustworthy? Seeing these two people, who would you consider more trustworthy? Do you have an answer to these questions? A gut reaction, maybe? You've never met any of these people, right? So what's that feeling based on? Social scientists call these kinds of judgments unconscious biases. So remember I told you about the story about the pilot, right? About my experience. Well, I was getting on a flight for Delta Airlines. And not today, but in the past, I don't know if you remember, that pilot would come out and meet you at the gate along with the flight attendant when you were boarding the flight. And this is a flight I was boarding. And the pilot and this flight attendant were outside greeting us. And as I walked by, I got confused. I sat down on my seat and I started to run through my brain these thoughts. Well, what happened was the pilot happened to be a female. It was the first time I'd seen a female pilot on Delta. And the flight attendant was a male. And I thought, this picture is so bizarre from what I'm used to. And so it really surprised my mind. And I started to wonder things. Oh my God, are they going to be able to fly the plane? Is that going to be like a Captain Scully, right? Be able to land the plane should there be a problem? And I couldn't believe myself. I had to stop and say, wait a minute, what am I thinking? She's probably way more prepared than anybody that ever flew, right? And so, but it was that 1 second of thought. So it is really part of our unconscious bias. Think about this. We behave and act not according to the truth, but the truth as we believe it can be, right? Or to be. So think about the following statements. Example, people don't see things the way they are. They see the things the way they are. Isn't that like a real eye-opener, right? Sometimes you look at something and you see it the way you, and somebody else will tell you something different that changes your perspective once you hear it because of maybe the way you see it. So what's unconscious bias?
Our brain is hardwired to trust what's familiar and be suspicious of what's unfamiliar. It's a basic survival instinct that's helped keep us safe for thousands of years.
We unconsciously sort things into familiar versus unfamiliar, same versus different, them versus us. Here's a test. How do you feel about people who own a handgun,
Don't attend church. Vote for the other candidate.
are on welfare,
Don't eat meat.
have tattoos,
Don't believe in marriage.
drive an electric car,
Didn't go to college.
don't speak English,
Curse.
Are over 60.
are disabled,
Drive the speedway.
Love cats.
Love dogs.
Can you feel your brain sorting people into groups? Was there a little them versus us happening? It can happen unconsciously.
Gosh, that to me, like the different parties with different, right? Everything really is how some of our biases are formed, right? Studies have shown that we're all susceptible to cultural stereotypes about race, about gender, sexual orientation, religion, politics, age, personality, everything, even where we were raised can affect our biases. And what happens is the conscious mind is processing 1 million pieces of information per second, but the unconscious brain processes 40 million pieces of information per second. So Sigmund Freud, talks about this, who is a psychoanalytic theory. Our unconscious mind continues to influence our behaviors and experiences, even though we are unaware of these underlying influences. The unconscious can include repressed feelings, things that happen to us that we might not know why, hidden memories, habits, thoughts, desires, and reactions form each time that we see somebody based on the perceptions of the world that we have been around and the world that currently is around us. Think about the first time you meet somebody, right? What's your first impression? What does that handshake talk about, right? You hear about all these different things, right? Oh, that's a weak handshake. There's all these perceptions that our unconscious mind is creating. So it categorizes us. It categorizes people when you first meet them. And sometimes you've heard that first impression is hard to take, but you really need to start to think about that first impression and how it could really obscure your mind. Unconscious minds, and we may not be aware of that some of the prejudice have taken root in us. They're born from our upbringing, the background, our culture. They're shortcuts to help our brain decipher all the things that come once at us. They're based on cultural stereotypes, people that are different from us, people that wear a hijab. What's our first thought about it? I know that one of our colleagues shared a story with me because they start as young as 3 or 4. Okay. So it's like things like, Asians are smart and they typically work on technology or engineering fields, right? And they're better at math as to those that women are not, or maybe less competent than men at certain things, which is what I shared with you, right? About my pilot experience. Jane Beanick recently shared that one of her coworkers told an interesting story. The mom, this little boy, he's an 8-year-old, his mother is a mechanical engineer. And his father is actually a stay-at-home father. He stays at home while she works. And one day, because this little boy makes straight A's in all the sciences and math and just really excelling in that area, a family member asked him, hey, when you grow up, are you going to be an engineer just like your mother? And do you know what he said? He said to her, oh my God, no way. That's women's work. this little boy at that age had already had this bias develop that he wasn't even aware of, thinking because his culture had seen his mother be the one that worked, that was women's work. So everyone has unconscious bias. Just as we have unconscious biases for things that we are against, we also have what are known as similarity bias. So what is that? Let's take a look.
People say that if you want something done well, you should do it yourself. Or at the very least, find someone just like you to do it. Okay, maybe they don't say that last part, but that's often what we do. All thanks to similarity bias. Similarity bias happens when we're drawn towards people who seem familiar or remind us of ourselves. Which is okay if you're casting for the role of twin, but not okay if you need to work with others to accomplish a goal. So why do we think like this? Well, experts tell us it's how we've evolved. Our early ancestors had to learn how to survive, to assess quickly between friend or foe. As generations passed down their culture's survival techniques, they also shared their blind spots. And we're still applying these old in-group and out-group biases to our social networks today. Picture your neighbors, your friends, your closest colleagues. Chances are the people in your inner circle are pretty similar to you. Let's test this idea. Imagine you're at a networking event. You quickly scan the room to see who's there. Which group would you gravitate towards? Would it be this one? Or this one? Or how about this one? Did you instantly recognize the group you'd be most comfortable with? Studies show we often gravitate towards people who we think are similar to us, based on shared social identities. If this dynamic of similarity bias naturally happens at networking events, what might that mean in workplaces? Research has shown that when supervisors rate their subordinates, the more similar the parties are, the higher the rating the supervisor tends to give. Another study showed that interviewers prefer candidates who have similar demographics or attitudes to their own. Similarity bias means you may be unintentionally giving opportunities to others based on something going on in your unconscious mind. Getting past similarity bias is important because it's the right thing to do and it's the smart thing to do. According to a survey by PwC, a majority of directors believe diversity positively impacts their board and company, and many studies have shown that diverse teams perform better. Companies with the highest levels of racial diversity brought in nearly 15 times more sales revenue than those with the lowest levels. And in the S&P 1500, female representation in top management was found to improve performance in firms focused on the strategy of innovation. Bottom line, diversity is good for people, for businesses, and for society. So how can we outsmart our unconscious mind? How can we get past similarity bias to build more inclusive environments? First, you can examine your network. Who's in it? Who's not? Don't unintentionally exclude people who aren't like you. Open the door to your inner circle. Invite others with different experiences and perspectives in. You can learn a lot from them. And encourage ideas. It's one thing to give someone a seat at the table. It's another to give them a voice. You'll be amazed at how your own perspective might change. You know, I see a lot of myself in you, but I think it's time for something different.
So I don't know if you've ever experienced that, going to an event and being attracted to the same group of people that you think kind of fit your personality or image, right? And it's unconscious, right? It happens to all of us. But what happens? How do things issues manifest? And what happens when we let our unconscious bias control us? What happens is what is known as micro inequities. And that's a big word for small actions. But what that means is the way that we show biases at work and to our clients. They're disrespectful actions that are sometimes so subtle that they leave the other person wondering, hey, was I just slighted or am I just being overly sensitive? Take someone who feels that discrimination on the basis of sex is wrong, but is still uncomfortable with the idea of having a woman leader and leader enough that the person might also avoid eye contact with a woman leader, right? So there are certain micro inequities that happen in all of us. They're microaggressions as well. Micro inequities are bad because what happens, the person on the receiving end, they may feel that they're targeted or singled out, slighted, or less competent. It can eventually lead to low self-esteem, lack of productivity, and even depression. Because they're micro, people often dismiss them as nothing. You might think, oh my God, why am I always left out of emails? Why does a person not look at me when they're talking? They look at everyone else. Have you ever had that happen? So, question for you. Do you treat everyone, all your clients, in the same fair, equitable manner? Or are there prejudices that you don't even think about affecting your behavior? So again, they can be small and subtle, take a toll on the target, and can result from unconscious bias. So these micro inequities, what are some of the examples of it? Excluding someone from a meeting or a social gathering, just leaving them out. Mispronouncing a person's name constantly when they've asked you to, and you've seen that, right? In movies where they call somebody the wrong name, right? Failing to give credit when it's due to somebody that actually had the idea. Not introducing somebody. Have you ever been at an event where everyone's introduced except for you? They kind of overpass you. And you're like, what happened to me? Eye rolling, right? Oh my God, there she goes again, talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? These are things that happen that are micro inequities. So it happens. So here are some myths. I want you to answer these real quickly to see what you think, right? So skin color, gender, ethnicity, and age are generally what people think about when they consider unconscious bias, like thinking about these things, right? Say true or false, and you don't have to answer it, just in your mind. Was it true or false? Well, true. That's usually what people think about, but it's not just about that, right? But there are other biases. It can be a bias against somebody's job function. Like, what do they do? Oh, they're just a secretary. You know, you don't need to talk to her. Age, family, domestic status, nationality, veteran status. It can be physical capabilities. It can be somebody who's overweight or somebody that's underweight. Their attractiveness, their political affiliation, which we saw a lot this past year. There's hair color. You know, you've heard sometimes that people that are redheads get discriminated against. All of these are ways that you can be discriminated. I can't do anything about my unconscious bias, right? Because it's unconscious. True or false? False. You actually can do. These are the things that you can do to change how you view things. You can learn more about your colleagues and expand your professional network. As you saw in that video, go outside of your comfort zone, get to know other people, create fair-minded processes within your office so that you make sure that you're not cutting anyone off intentionally. Team up to disrupt bias-prone procedures. One of the best predictors of whether people can reduce their biases is simply whether they have the desire to do so. Honestly, do you want to change? That's what's going to drive it. Bias is all about disliking certain groups. Yes or no? True or false? And that one is also false. Just as important, you need to examine who you might be biased toward, not just who you might be biased against. Because also, people like similar people to do things and to hand off jobs and to, work with. That's important. So what's the solution? Small gestures that really make an impact. And that is what's really important. Now, all of you, if you've been in real estate and your realtors, have heard of these affirmations that we do, like I'm going to make $1 million sale today, all these affirmations, right? That's what you can do. We call them micro affirmations, and they're common courtesy and consciously practiced. It could be a simple thing as saying hi to somebody. So here are 4 kinds of micro affirmations. Listening, including, valuing, and engaging. If you look at the word, it's like live it, life, like live, right? Listening, including, valuing, and engaging. Listening, making eye contact, paying attention to what others are saying to you, not rolling your eyes or looking away when they're talking to you, and not interrupting when they're speaking. How many of you have been interrupted when you're speaking? You're like, oh, it's so frustrating. Including, inviting people to participate in things, keeping everyone in the loop, being socially inclusive as well, valuing, giving credit where it's due, encouraging people to use their strengths, acknowledging those accomplishments when they are done, and engaging, just saying hello, saying goodbye, asking, how are you? Tell me about yourself, asking for input. These are so simple, right? But we can do it every single day. So there are 3 steps where you can avoid unconscious bias. Number 1, understand we all have these unconscious biases. They exist. And so think about what they might be for you. What were you exposed to? People will say, I was bullied when I was young. And so I have an unconscious bias against this group of people because I was bullied by them. Or I was a cheerleader and I have certain biases against other groups. Identify your bias potential impact on the workplace and the people that you're serving. Are there certain things that you are doing that perhaps might show preference to one or another that's unconscious? And so start to think and identify what those could be, and then broaden your viewpoint, educate others, educate yourself, learn. The best thing you can do is when you're thinking about, and remember I sat on the plane and I thought about it, stop, think, pause, and think. Understand, again, that it exists. So you got to stop and identify the pausing of what happened. Okay, what did I do? And then think, broaden your viewpoint and educate others. So those are the 3 major things that you can do, and start to learn, get involved in organizations that might broaden your people, right? The people that you're around, understanding different cultures. Now, here are some great organizations that I want to share with you that are phenomenal to expose yourself in the real estate world that can help you perhaps understand a different culture, get involved, or broaden your networking. ARIA, the Asian Real Estate Association of America, VAREP, Veterans Association of Real Estate Professionals, NARAB, the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. All these organizations are fabulous. They do a lot of training. They do a lot of work in expanding our understanding of different things that are happening, and also getting us out to the community so that we can serve them better, right? Serve our constituents better. Here's great reads. I love to read. And so these are some good books that might kind of expand your thoughts and what you need to be doing. And I will tell you, NAR has a great host of books as well as videos on the website right now for fair housing. I would highly recommend them as well. If you like podcasts, here's some additional podcasts that would be great for you to view that I think are fabulous as well. And then some Netflix. I love to watch Netflix. And here's some great things that really opened up my eyes of things that happened in the past that really made me understand why some of the biases were created and what happened in our real estate world that would open opportunities for me now moving forward. So these are some great videos as well. I think I want to leave you as we're done. We have a couple minutes for any questions, but this Martin Luther King Jr. Quote that I love: anytime there's injustice anywhere, it is a threat to justice everywhere, right? People just feel like, oh my God, there's injustice, and therefore we can never feel the justice that we need to feel. And then I love this one as well. We cannot change what we're not aware of. And once we are aware, we cannot help but change. All right, well, with that, I think I am at the time. I've got 4 minutes left. So for those of you, are there any questions? Karen, what are your thoughts?
This is wonderful, and thank you for taking your time today to be with us and speak. So yes, does anybody have any questions? And I believe that I believe this is also being recorded so that people can come back and watch later.
Was it helpful? Just give me a hands up if you liked what you saw. Did it open your eyes? Sometimes it's really important. I think the first time I saw this presentation, I thought, wow, I really do personally have some biases that I didn't realize. And I'm thinking I'm all diversity. And there are certain things that I also do, right, that affect me. And so it really is something that we all, need to be aware of. It really helps open our eyes and also understanding. And the one thing I have to share is it's 360, because a lot of people say, well, it's white and black, it's Hispanic. It's 360. It's important that you think about people that are different from you and their perspectives and how you can really learn from each other to make a better world and to make your sales stronger and your environment more inclusive, where everyone feels like they belong and are respected, valued. But again, I really appreciate it. I don't see any questions. Did I do that help you guys understand a little bit more? And what I'm going to do on the video that I skipped, because I saw that I was running time-wise, I will share that with you guys. It's a great video that I think kind of explains the differences in what's happening today in inequities, so that you can kind of get a deeper understanding of why people feel like, oh my God, we're not in advance. Homeownership is not where it needs to be for certain communities. Why is that? So I'll send that video, Karen, so that you guys can see it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Again, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. If not, and you'd like more information, feel free to email me as well, and I can forward Teresa's info too.
And also feel free to reach out to me. Karen has my contact information. I meant to include my slide, but I'll be glad to answer any questions, refer you to any books, and I'll send you the PDF also that will provide you with the books information and the videos, so that you have that in case you want to go check those out as well. And remember, NAR has some great resources. They have phenomenal reads. I encourage you to go to the website and check them out, because they are fabulous, and they constantly are expanding their portfolio. But thank you again. I will leave you because I know it's time, but I really appreciate the opportunity to present today. And as you can tell, I love what I do and I'm passionate about it, and really am proud to see all of you on this call really learning about biases, again, that I think it's important as we move forward to create a better place for our clients.
Thank you, everybody. My email, if you're interested, is kgray, Gray, @firstweber.com. So if you want more information, feel free to send me an email. And thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great week.